Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hey guys, welcome to an AI Pro Plus show. I very nearly said the Nina Kauser show, but it's almost that time. I'll be back on that mic as well. This is AI Pro Plus, and there's been some big news coming, which certainly affects Liverpool supporters. Unfortunately, I've not had a chance to cover like the transfer window and stuff, but there's been big news regarding the new ticketing scheme. So I am hosting this podcast, and it's a way of sort of educating myself, getting to know it a little bit better, because I've seen a lot of uproar on social media. So we on Anfield Index decided that we'd get the best people to not only educate myself, but also you in general as well. If you're a bit unsure about how it affects, Liverpool supporters and the whole match going experience. And it's an honour because I have two incredible guests. It's going to be a two-part show. So first up, as you know, people are really busy. You can't get two people on a podcast at the same time. Certainly not in this scorching heat. People have things to do. But first up, I am delighted to be joined by a familiar voice on Anfield Index, I have to say, but I've not spoken to him in a while, so it's great to be podcasting with him again. It's Dave Davis. Welcome back.
I'm good, Nina. How are you?
It's an honour to have you on, sir. I know you've been really busy on the transfer podcast, but it's great to have you on this one. And I think, let's get straight into it, because, it's something that I've seen a lot on social media, certainly over, towards the end of the week. And I want to get your thoughts on it. I mean, your thoughts on the new scheme, because I did see a lot of uproar on social media, and, from a lot of like supporters clubs, like, and, fan representation, like Spirit of Shankly and things. So I want to get your thoughts. What do you make of the new scheme?
Yeah, it's a big sea change from what it was last year. I suppose there's a little bit of that to be expected. It does link towards lockdown, the easing of restrictions, that type of thing. I think last season there was a natural fear from the club, like what's going to happen with lockdown, what's going to happen with any potential restrictions, etc. So it was almost free to transfer to anyone, probably the best way to describe it last season.
Yes.
Now, the way, obviously the world's changed, so to speak, totally understood the logic behind that, but probably the indications were it was never going to stay like that, Nina. There's, it's never going to be that simple, and friends and family didn't really come in last season at all. So that's sort of the context, the starting point. This season, obviously, big sea changes. And, you look at the biggest sort of headlines, if you want to call them that. You can transfer your ticket up to 3 times before it's locked out. The biggest one, though, you can't escape. The attendee gets the credit. That's the big one.
Yes, that's what I'm looking at here. Yeah.
You can't really escape that. And probably, as you said, you're looking at it there. If you've not at all, guys, really, really can't stress it enough. Have a good look at what's on the website. Liverpool have put all the details on there, the context there, the stats behind it, the rationale. And also there's FAQs galore. So there is an absolute ton of info in there. There really is. And that's been, I suspect, what a lot of people have been doing, almost reading it, digesting it, trying to take it all in, that type of thing. Being honest, Nina, you're never going to get I know this is going to sound like a politician answer, you're never going to get a scheme that everyone likes. It's that simple. When there was ballots, people like, but I used to do well in the sales. Okay, when there was sales, that's not fair, there's not an even distribution. So you're never going to hit the mark with everything. Liverpool are not stupid on that. I do think there's a bit of fairness. The person who attends gets the credit. It stops people almost hoarding them to themselves. So I do like that element. I probably think it will create I don't know how to phrase this, let's call it a burner phone culture. It's never going to eradicate tout fully, that type of option. We've got to be honest about that. But long story short, I like that they're also trialling it with league games and leaving the cup alone this season. So the person who purchases the cup will get the credit, on the cup schemes, not the league. So that's a key shout out as well. So I think, it might be controversial, I think there's an element of fairness to it. I get what they're doing, the friends and family. And listen, they're not stopping your friends and family, are you? They can be unlimited. You've just got to be prepared for that. It's almost like a transfer window deadline, isn't it? The 5th of August, that's the big day. So you've got to get it all sorted before then. But yeah, fairness to it, but it's never going to be popular, put it that way.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head that, there'll always be a portion of people that'll always like grumble. And, you kind of said like, there might be an individual, like you said, you can put on unlimited like friends and family and things. And I think the biggest gripe here with it is like, I think you hit the nail on the head where you said, the person that attends it gets the credit. So really there isn't much incentive, like just say if you are a member, you are a membership holder and you can't actually physically go to the game. So if you can't go to the game, you are essentially kind of missing out on all fronts in terms of, if you sell it back to the club, you get nothing. If it's an empty seat, you get nothing with no refund. And if you are fortunate to have a friend or a family member go, you get nothing. And I think maybe that's where all the angst and the gripe was, because I think we used to see it a lot on social media, David. I'm sure you'll agree as well. It would be like, the day before kickoff and somebody's like, got a spare if anyone's interested, drop me a DM, or, like that kind of culture will now, well, looking by this season, that'll be gone. I mean, you spoke about last season where you said you could just transfer it and it was pretty much a digital ticket with the barcode. And again, obviously I did not go to a single game last season because of, the nature of how we're living right now. And, it just, and a lot of my friends did go to games and started, reintroducing that, that element of normality back. And it's great to have fans back at the stadium. I'm just going to put that out there. It's been brilliant. But I just think, from what I understand was a lot of people enjoyed last season's, experience of, the whole ticketing scenario. I mean, how did you feel about that?
Mixed is probably the word. I think you're right. People enjoyed the bit of, you could transfer it. Maybe people who didn't get in before, have got in before. I know there's going to be some cry of day trippers and stuff in the background, but, it's a good spread, that type of thing. So I like that. Probably the if I was being honest, because I went to the most games last season, just to put that in context. There were certain games the atmosphere wasn't quite there, if that makes sense. Of being honest, now I get the club have got a balance, getting people more access, more fans getting a chance versus the regular. I totally understand that. There was probably just a few games where the atmosphere did take a bit of a dip, and it's not trying to blame anyone, so to speak. I get why that could be the case. So clubs got bills to pay, got players to pay, that type of thing. If you want a club to be successful, it's got to make money. So you will find that people maybe going on the day trip will be more, open to the mega store, buying things, that type of thing, than your regular match goers. You've got to be honest about that. So definite pros in the spreading, but maybe just the odd occasion I thought, atmosphere, bit of a question mark against that, so to speak. And listen, that could be me putting 2 and 2 together and getting 7. It's not just putting it on people who go one time, but just makes me think it might have had that effect, put it that way.
No, I think that's fair. And I think the next question I have to ask you, you kind of mentioned there that you went to a fair few games last season. I mean, a bit of a personal one. How and if does this affect you personally? I mean, are you a season ticket holder? Because they look like they won't be, it doesn't look like much changes will happen to them at all. Or are you a member, do you hold a membership?
Yeah, not got a season ticket. I'm a membership, so I'm in the 13 plus category as it is, or the tier to give it its proper name. I suppose for me, I mean, everyone's going to be different, but not too much, because I attended regularly anyway, like I said, so it wasn't like I ever really sort of gave anything away, if that makes sense, credit-wise. I suppose in that sense, I know there's a bit of a debate on this. If you're in the 13 plus tier, I would say you get a bit of an advantage, because, you could still buy all 19, you're guaranteed if you want to enter, shall we say. And then you almost get, I suppose you say, the 6 games where you don't have to go, you could give them to people, that type of thing if you wanted. So you get a bit of leeway there from a season ticket. So for me personally, I mean, I'm all the way up in Edinburgh, so it's a good 500-mile 8-hour round trip for me.
Mhm.
But it's got to be done. It's simple as that. Without trying to get divorced at the same time, type of thing.
Yeah.
So it's trying to balance it really,
Yes.
really carefully at the same time. But for the 13 pluses, if you're guaranteed a credit, can you grumble? Struggle to see it, in all honesty, Nina. I suppose the biggest thing that did surprise me on that is the gap in the tiers. It's like the 0,
Mhm.
4, 13. That's a massive leap, isn't it? 4
Yeah.
to 13. And I think the big sort of question mark or suspicion, and it kind of is, the club haven't alluded to it. I need to be clear. It's not the club. SOS in their statements have alluded to it, but it's just still a massive jump from 4 to 13. There's quite a gap there, quite a range, isn't there? So there was a bit of surprise. Nothing came in that interim or in that gap, but it is what it is. So we'll see what develops for this season.
Absolutely. So, I mean, from my understanding then, from just speaking to you, because again, I'm just trying to like educate myself, and trying to read as much as I can, and also speaking to, people who have great insight like yourself, and I'll be hopefully to Harinda later on as well. From my understanding is then, so, there's been a lot of like dissatisfaction, and I've seen a lot of like angst on social media, and of course, Spirit of Shankly put out a statement as well, and they are kind of like I like to call them like the Senate of the Liverpool supporters, and like they put it out there, and I mean there's a lot of like we said, we've read a lot on social media, so you've spoken about the tiers of the membership. So you went from 0 to 4 to 13, which where you're at, where you are, and would you say it's fair then a lot of the angst is probably coming from the 0 tier memberships and the 4?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think that is a fair statement. And listen, I totally get it, because people, I've been there. I know people, good mates that are there. So it can be really difficult, especially in the ballot, the amount of unsuccessful. And when the club produced the odds for certain games, like 1 in 22, I can't remember the games, but it was all on the website. That just makes you think how hard it is to get a ticket in the first place. So I totally get that. And I do understand that sort of frustration that's had. Completely understand it. I think probably one thing I would say to listeners, if you've not, and you're thinking, when I'm going to talk about it now, definitely go on the Spirit of Shankly website, because they put out a full statement. It's really, clear, detailed, the representations they made to the club, what they said, the thoughts they shared, all that type of thing. So it's definitely a good one to sort of read up on, as much as I'm going to paraphrase now. I think what I like that they called out is it's not a perfect scheme. So we should always be vocal on its deficiencies, the things that maybe don't quite work. So the potential for burner phones. Also, if you buy it, but you don't attend, and something comes up on the day, Nina, if that makes sense, and maybe you don't have time for transfer, ticket exchange, etc., you don't get the refund and no one gets the credit. And they kind of used a good example there, just in case anyone wants to read the statement around what happens if family emergencies occur, that type of thing. So I do get that. I understand that representation. One thing that I suppose you call it a spoiler alert, if I'm honest, that they put in there is they made the representation about the tiers and, how everything was working. And what they said, and I'm not going to pretend I've got the exact wording in front of me, but what they alluded to was, we have spoken to the club, and what the club have intimated is next season, and I mean that as in, what will it be, 23, 24, not this season coming, but the following one after that.
Yes.
What they've really intimated is, the club are going to look at those tiers, because Annie Road expansion will be done. There's more and more supporters. They understand people are going to struggle to keep in the 13 bracket, all that type of thing. So it was kind of a spoiler alert, if that makes sense. They're probably going to review the tiers next season, but that's all it is, isn't it, really? A spoiler alert. It's not like we're definitely going to do it. We're definitely going to change this. They're going to look at the research. So, I know it's a long-winded answer, but really can't stress it enough, Nina. It's definitely worth fans, if you're uncertain, as much as I'm paraphrasing it, have a read of that statement. It's quick and easy to see. You can put your own interpretations on that, but appreciate what they did. They made their representations on behalf of fans, and I suppose we'll see if the club listens long-term, eh?
Absolutely. And no, we appreciate you sort of paraphrasing, and sort of listeners, do check out the Spirit of Shankly website and their official statement. again, we're talking about, they kind of highlighted there, like things like, family emergencies on the day, things you can't avoid because life happens, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And I guess the next question I have to ask for you again, because I'm just trying to better familiarize myself with all this. So obviously you have to hit a certain amount of credits to be sort of that kind of eligible. I mean, you said they're going to re-evaluate next season, hopefully, and they kind of make it a bit easier. But, just say, for example, I am a member, for example, and I don't hit the credits that they kind of want me to hit to be eligible again for next season. What happens to me next season? And I think, I guess, does that mean that I kind of lose my, I don't know, do you want to say kind of priority, if you will? Does it become an even distributing field then for all the members? I guess that's the next question I kind of want to ask you. I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. If you don't hit your credits, you're pretty much down a tier.
Yeah, I suppose if we base it on what we know at the moment, so we know there's like 13, 4 and 0. So we base it on, what the facts are as it stands. Yeah, in simple terms, if you don't attend 13 or attend 4, whether that's been through your own choice, ability, or you don't get the credits through the ballots in the lower tiers, you're going to drop. Yeah, there's no two ways about that. I suppose the unknown on that, Nina, which I'm really trying to be careful how I explain this as well.
Yes.
We don't know what the tiers are going to be next season. And obviously by that SOS statement, there's a clear, you could easily interpret that, and this is the danger of taking 2 and 2 and getting 27, but you can interpret that as the club are reviewing it. So, and please be clear, this is my total disclaimer, this is a hypothetical here.
Yes.
They might introduce something like a 6 or a 6 to 8 tier, something like that. So actually,
like a middle buffer kind of a bracket. Yeah.
100%. And there's a logical argument for thinking that will happen as per, the spoilers that are given. But I need to be clear, that is a hypothetical. That is not guaranteed by any means at this stage. So if we take away the hypothetical, this is going to sound really brutal, Nina, but yeah, if you don't get the tickets and for whatever reason, or you don't attend for whatever reason, as it stands, unless something changes, you drop in tiers. Yeah, simple as that.
And like you said, you put in a hypothetical there. Maybe there will be like a compensation, like a middle buffer in terms of a tier that kind of doesn't make you significantly drop. But again, it's all hypothetical. We don't know anything yet. I guess it's just it's going to be trial and error, and we're just going to have to watch the space on this. I mean, again, I'm thinking long and hard about this, and you kind of again at the beginning of the pod, because I'm really paying attention, trying to, you got to educate yourself on these things. But you said that, it will affect, you were kind of talking about people who have, multiple tickets. I call them the hoarders. And I'm guessing that do you think they're going to be hit quite badly? Because I think we do see that when people say, I got 4 spares and stuff, and you think, how on earth have you done that? But, the membership holders who have a load of tickets. I mean, do you think in that regard that the pros to this is maybe that it is like an even field where you can't do that? Because realistically, how many, because what those people tend to do, from my experience or my knowledge of just seeing how those people operate on social media, certainly, is they can just give them out to people on like face value, or there are touts as well. You can't ignore that fact as well. But, you can just sort of say, hey, I've got some spares, DM me if you're interested, and it's normally a friend of a friend of a friend who will purchase this ticket. So do you think that's going to eliminate that kind of culture, and those people who have multiple tickets, do you think they're going to be hit quite hard?
God, that's one I'm going to answer this really, really carefully, and it's going to sound politicians, but just going to be honest on this.
No, you got to cover your back. Go for it.
Yeah, I think it is a good point. That is the ultimate positive. I mean, if you think it's a hypothetical, but if you think last season someone could have purchased 13 credits, attended 0, because they could have passed it to anyone, and still been in the 13. I mean, keep that in your mind. Bought 13. And 0 still in that tier. So like you call them the hoarders, let's use that phrase. So I totally get that aspect. It is a positive that's not what we want. That's not the fairest system. If you are one of those hoarders, you may be thinking, what am I saying? But no, let's be honest, that's not the fairest if we use that term of systems. Absolutely. Will it eradicate it? Oof. How do I phrase it? I think Liverpool fans are more resourceful than any fans you ever come across. Be it travel for games, tickets, that type of things. They are so resourceful. Now, if you think back to, like, say, history, like you said, 1,000 years, but in recent times, cards, they got passed between people willy-nilly, didn't they? If you think about recently, the transfers made it easy last season. I think, to be honest, you're going to see the culture of the burner phone, Nina, if you want me to be honest. I think you'll just start to see that, because it will be that person's burner phone, so it'll almost seem to the system like they've been to all those games, but that burner phone could have got passed around to anyone, if that makes sense. And I'd almost to be careful, it sounds like I'm advertising crime or a solution here, but that's just what I think, will be the honest thing on that. I think it will happen. And season ticket people, they can still, transfer, do the exchange, so they're not affected. So they have that option. But I know it sounds like a really bad answer, but that is just my honest thoughts. There is ways around this still, and I do think touts will still exist, whatever people say.
I think that's fair, and I think you just hit the nail on the head there, where you said Liverpool fans are really, really resourceful, and I can potentially see something like that. Just pass that phone around, like we used to pass. People used to pass around, the card and stuff. So I think it'd just be like the same thing, where where people meet up after the game and then hand it back, and that whole thing. Yeah, I think that culture could potentially still be there. I think you're absolutely right to highlight it. I mean, in your personal experience, Dave, as well, I mean, how do you think this is going to affect match day experience? Because I think I saw a lot of that on social media as well. Like, this is really going to affect, fan culture and the match day experience. And you kind of alluded to atmosphere as well and things. So your personal thoughts on that one?
Oh, deadly honest, there were some games that were brilliant last year. Like, absolutely brilliant. Like, thinking like the end of the season, the run in, everything that we were going for, like that Everton game, United under the lights, the champions, all brilliant. I think the only problem is it's that match day experience that you mentioned, and the club have got to get the balance right. And I understand that doesn't sound great, but they've got to get the balance right. You can't just expect it to all be, the regulars who go to the game, go home, don't really spend much. That doesn't work too well for the club. You've got to open it up to, and I use that phrase, and it's not trying to be disparaging, but day trippers, if that makes sense. People who will go, and let's just be honest, Nina, probably spend a bit more money, in the mega store, at different
good for the economy,
Yeah, 100%. Better for the local, the economy, that type of thing. Better for what LFC are most concerned about, not in a disparaging way, but the bottom line, and all the things that generates as well. So it's a balance. The negative tends to be that you will get some atmospheres and certain games where it just ain't there, despite there being, 55,000 whatever in the stadium. That did happen at times last year. There's no two ways about that. I don't think you can necessarily get over that. You can't have a perfect system, but that's the trade-off that you make in the nicest way. Sometimes the atmosphere might dip a little bit, but those fans who maybe aren't used to that are likely to spend more, like you say, in the local economy, in the clubs, stores, etc. So it's a trade-off, isn't it? There is going to be a bit of a dip, but it's a bottom line job at the end of the day.
Indeed. And again, whilst I was kind of reading up on this and, just reading various comments and tweets on social media, probably not your best source of news, but, you saw a lot of people sort of calling out the owners, saying, oh, this is just another way of them getting the locals out. And, I saw a lot of that. I mean, have you got a thought on that? I mean, where do you stand on that? Because again, I'm playing devil's advocate here, I'm just sat here just reading this, these sort of comments, and I know you travelled in from Edinburgh, so I mean, I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
I get it all, I really do, and probably that's why I used that word earlier, that it's a balance, isn't it? Trying to get that balance perfect, because let's be honest, just to be clear, yeah, of course we want local fans. We want local fans engaged. Like, they're the heartbeat of Liverpool. Like, look at SOS. Of course you want local fans. Absolutely. At the same time, fans do understand that football is a business, isn't it? Let's not lie about that as well. And it does come down to the bottom line. If you want Liverpool to be successful, there's going to have to be money in the coffers. It is that simple. What's the biggest or usual regular source of that match going income? And it's easy to disparage about, hospitality, blah, blah, blah. And I do get that, it's not going to be the most atmospheric area, but it's needed, isn't it? For the bottom line. And we don't complain too much when we do big renewals or buy players, do we, Nina? You know, there's got to be that awareness of where those funds have got to come from, you know. So it is a balance, and it's absolutely important that the club listen to Spirit of Shankly, supporters clubs, you know, the unions, that type of things. It's important that they balance and think carefully about local fans, overseas, those who travel in, all those types of things. So this is a total politician, honestly. I'm getting splinters in my arse. I'm sitting on the fence that much. I totally get it. But it is all about a balance, and it's all about whether the club get that right.
Absolutely. And you kind of spoke about hospitality there and stuff. And I know a lot of people, like you said, it might not be the best in terms of atmosphere, but, you know, I'll just say something just in general. Sometimes hospitality might be the best option for somebody, not because they want to throw money at an experience. I'll just give an example for me personally. My mum is not a Liverpool supporter. She supports Man United. But, you know, if I ever took her to a game, I would pay hospitality because I would want her to be comfortable, because she has needs, physical needs. And I would want her to be as comfortable as possible. And I don't mind paying the odds for her to have a really nice experience.
Yeah, you know, makes sense.
Do you know what I mean? Some people are like that. It's not really a snooty thing. What you need to realise is it's not just about throwing money at a situation. Some people just want a comfortable experience. And for me personally, if I was ever, you know, if I wanted to provide, you know, and I'm sure there's Liverpool supporters who want that for their families as well. Maybe if you've got really, really small children, I don't know, you know, and some people might think, well, actually, I do have the means and the funds to do that, so I could potentially do that. And I completely get that, because, again, you want a nice experience. I mean, we saw what happened in Paris, and, you know, so many children were absolutely traumatized, you know, just a horrible, horrible experience. So, again, like you said, there's a balance, and I think everything should be a balance, because, like you said, there's different tiers of membership. I think there's also different tiers of supporting a football club as well, you know, where you do get, you know, the earthy locals. And, you know, I've been in the COP, and, you know, I've come back with injuries, not deliberate ones, but just people just going absolutely berserk when you score a goal. And that's just, you know, but that's not for everybody. I would not like, for example, like my mum in that situation. So yeah, I completely get it. I mean, Dave, going back to, you know, this whole thing as well, I mean, how has it been received by, you know, various supporters clubs? You know, you live in Edinburgh. I mean, have you spoken to the supporters clubs in Edinburgh? I mean, like, how have they taken this news? I mean, what's the general, you know, vibe about this whole new ticketing scheme?
Yeah, so from the bits I know from speaking to the supporters club, it's quite interesting, because I suppose when we say supporters club, we use that term generically, because almost as the like Spirit Shankly that we know, we might class them as a union supporters club, and then there's the official supporters clubs as well. You know, like there is one in Edinburgh as well. So from the bits I've got, sort of speaking to them, it's quite interesting. It's quite illuminating, as they're saying. I think people think that the official supporters club tend to have a lot of say or sway, if that's the right thing. So quite often Liverpool will tell them that information. They have to react with it, so to speak. It is what, as they said, it is what it is a little bit, so to speak. So they have to react to it, go with it, for want of a better phrase. So that was quite interesting. I suppose it's just because it is an important distinction when we talk about supporters club, because you might be thinking we're mentioning SOS. Is that who we're talking about? They are, could dress them as a union, a supporters club, and obviously I don't want to get in trouble with them, whatever their official title might be, but their job is naturally as more of a union element to represent fans, obviously. How would you put it? Make those representations about any concerns, because they do represent such a wide, diverse range. It's not just about them saying, yeah, that's probably okay on the whole. It's their job, almost from that union element, to say this doesn't work, or we've got issues with this for certain elements. You know, I'll try again using that word, and I know we're going to get people shouting at me when they listen to this, but balancing it all, so to speak, that is that job. So I think, I know we said it before, but definitely if you haven't, rather than me just paraphrasing and taking things from that, do read the Spirit of Shankly statement on it. It is long, it is detailed, but there's some key points there that I wouldn't be surprised if I've missed a few even on this. And with the official supporters clubs, as they said, they don't get sort of an official sway, a backdoor, anything like that. They're keen to tell us that, you know, they react with it and go with it, so to speak.
I think that's fair. And once again, a nice plug for the Spirit of Shankly statement there. And I like the fact that you've kind of just said the official sports clubs are different to SOS, and they are kind of like the umbrella. In my mind, like you said, everyone has like a definition in their mind, and we don't want to. But to me, they kind of like are like the umbrella of what everyone's kind of feeling, or like like you said, they take on a different body altogether. I mean, obviously you alluded to this at the beginning of our chit chat there about the club will be reviewing this hopefully next season. I mean, do you think if there's enough angst, or if this goes really, really sideways, can you see the club doing like a U-turn like they did? Remember a few years ago when they were thinking about increasing the ticket prices and there was a walkout and things? I mean, we have known like, FSG to kind of do like a bit of a U-turn and kind of listen to the fans, which is a good thing, which is a really, really good thing. But can you see that happening in this circumstance, if it does go horribly wrong, or if there's enough kind of, I don't know, momentum against this new scheme?
Being honest, I don't think you'll see, this is speculation again, so you never know, but I don't think you'll see a U-turn. If you look at if you almost take the emotions out of it a little bit and look at the rationale behind why they did it, they were quite honest with the stats. It was quite strange in a way to see that last season, I think it's, and this is just checking on the website, about 53% of tickets were transferred. I mean, that's over 1 in 2, isn't it, Nina, were transferred to someone. So that's quite, not damning's the wrong word, but it's quite startling, isn't it, when you think about that statistic?
Yes.
Even more, over 80% of tickets bought in the late sales were transferred to someone. Ooh. So that's massive, isn't it? So that's almost indicating that someone's going in on the late sale to buy it for someone else, if that makes sense, or to transfer it. It's
like a business on a business, isn't it? It's almost like like a little side hustle.
100%. It's hard to believe anything else in it when the Liverpool are telling us. If they're being honest, the stats are over 80%. It's hard to really read anything else into it. So the reason I'm just saying that is that sort of sets a bit of context, a bit of rationale as to why they've done this. So I don't really see, and it's not impossible, I'll be clear on that, but unless there's something absolutely massive, I don't see a U-turn. I think actually, in fact, if you ask me to bet, I'd probably say it's the first step on this sort of new style. I think, again, please be clear, this is hypothetical. I think they will implement it for the Cups. They've not done it this year. But I think the Cups might well follow next year, as in whoever attends gets the credit, which doesn't apply to the Cups this year. I think as well, and I kind of alluded to it, you will see this brought in, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a middle tier, like we mentioned, something like 6 to 8, something along those lines. Yes. It's not impossible. It's absolutely not impossible, but I just don't see it. And in fact, what's kind of startling is, there's been suggestions made around, if you think about the finals we got to last year, we were in finals galore, weren't we?
Yes.
That was absolutely, which isn't a bad thing at all, don't get me wrong, but that naturally creates more complaints and queries. I think, as you said, we saw people in at the finals get in there, but they didn't actually attend any of the games, if that makes sense. They could have gone to 0 of the FA Cup games, 0 of the Carabao. They passed it on to a mate who went to everything, who went to every Champions League as well. But they got entered into those ballots despite the fact they
attended
anything.
And then that person physically went to the final and the friend was out.
Exactly. And and don't be wrong, I can't say he used them, because listen, that power would have got to go to all those, but it's now going, power in the final, I'm going to take it now.
Yes.
That just on the surface, that doesn't seem right, does it? Let's be honest. So that is where I think, just to give it context, I could be wrong. There's no way of proving I'm going to be right till next season, but I just don't think it'll be a U-turn. My gut tells me the Cups go into this scheme as well, and you see a middle tier. That's what my gut tells me.
I think that's fair. And you put a lot of disclaimers there, thinking, you're talking about hypotheticals there, so nothing's sort of set in stone. But I love the fact that you kind of mentioned, and the club did this as well. Extensive research has been done. So there's a reason why they're doing this, and they've kind of explained why. They've given you some hard stats there. I mean, the one that you told me that, the last minute buys were sold, like that one just shocked me. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm just like, what? Like that is quite alarming. And And, you know, the example of, you know, a friend goes to all the games and then the final, and then obviously the ticket hoarders, I like to call them, then obviously, you know, will be like, no, actually, I'm going to go to this final now. So, yeah, I like the fact that you kind of brought the measure then, you know, the balance. I mean, Dave, we've pretty much come to the end of our chit chat on this tickets. That's all that I needed to ask from you. Is there anything you'd want to bring to this, you know, anything you'd like to further add? You know, the floor's yours, basically.
I suppose just the only thing that you could do is almost just read what people put on social media. And listen, I just want to be clear. I totally get why people are, you know, frustrated in some elements. Totally understand it. And there is logic to that. Totally agree. Probably what I'd say, though, is you could look at the way someone words something and just take that as gospel. Like, do have a read of, you know, the details on the website. Do have a read of the FAQs. Have a look at Spirit of Shankly's statement. You know, make your own mind up, being educated on it type of thing. Because I must admit, I saw a few comments coming out and I thought, oh God, it's going to be, and then I actually read it, Nina, and I was like, hold on, that's not true at all. You know, when you actually had a look at the FAQ.
That's exactly where I was. I was like, oh, that's disgusting, you know, without reading, or just by reading the commentary on social media and how they kind of swayed the, you know, the narrative. Agreed.
Yeah. And there's bits on that, but probably just being like, as best tip I can give as possible, just be clued up on it, read it so you know it yourself, and then you're not relying on other people's interpretations that way. That'll be my biggest shout out.
I think that is, you know, sound advice. And, you know, again, I have much to read on this subject, but I feel so much better speaking to you, Dave, about it. And I'm sure the listeners will really, really appreciate your insight as well. Dave, thank you for that. Thank you for the insight. Thank you for the time. I know you're super busy. And I guess before I let you go, I've got to just ask you one just quick one. Are you really excited about next season?
How can you not be? Like, honestly, how can you not be? Like, look at the team. Like, look at the managers. Like, look at the renewals we've got done. Look at the side. Look at the style of football.
Yes.
If you're not excited, get in the bin, honestly.
I love that, Dave. And before I let you go, where can people find you on social media? And is there anything you'd like to plug? I know you've been on a few pods, so, you know, plug it away.
Yeah, you'll find me on Twitter at DaveD0106. Probably I don't want to plug myself too much because obviously I do a transfer show, so I'm opening myself to abuse there. So if you don't like what I say on there, probably if you could address all your complaints to Trev Down on Twitter, that would be the best thing, please, and we'll go from there.
I love it. Please do give Dave a follow and don't abuse him. It's just transfer chit chat. Guys, thank you for listening for this part of the podcast. That was Dave Davis.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.